The start of the Tokyo Olympics approaches, and the calls to cancel the games only keep growing.
With just weeks to go, the U.S. warns about traveling to Japan.
And the Olympics dips its toe into the world of virtual sports. Good morning, and thanks for joining us here on the KXAN and Nexstar-wide Japan 2020 digital show. I'm DuPree at KXAN here in Austin.
And I'm Andrew Marden, based in Fresno, California at KSEE TV. Will, good morning. You know, there are 51 days until the start of the Olympics. That's it.
Very, very soon, too, and so much to talk about as well.
That's right. Of course, we're going to catch you up on today's news, the developments, right before our team of reporters, including myself, heads to Tokyo to cover this summer's Olympics. And, Will, we have to start with the news that Japan has extended its coronavirus state of emergency for Tokyo and other areas until at least June 20th. Now, this is the country's third state of emergency since the start of the pandemic and second extension. During a news conference on Friday, the Japanese Prime Minister said that he made that decision because the situation remains highly unpredictable. He pointed out that hospitals in Osaka, which is Japan's second largest city, are now running out of beds and ventilators. However, he and Olympic organizers still say they plan to hold the games even though infections are not slowing. During a recent news conference, John Coates said the Olympics will happen even if it goes against the advice of local media experts. Coates is the International Olympic Committee's vice president. He said, quote, "The advice we have from the WHO, World Health Organization, and all other scientific and medical advice that we have is that all the measures we have outlined, all of those measures that we are undertaking as satisfactory, that we are undertaking are satisfactory and will ensure a safe and secure games in terms of health, and that's the case whether there is a state of emergency or not."
That comment from Coates in particular drew heavy criticism from one of the major newspapers in Japan, the Asahi Shimbun. If you take a look right here, published an editorial last week entitled "Prime Minister Suga, Please Call Off the Olympics This Summer." It's the first major media outlet in Japan to call for outright cancellation. The editorial stated, quote, "The central government, the Tokyo Metropolitan government, and Olympic officials are forging ahead relentlessly, refusing to address the public's perfectly legitimate questions and concerns. Naturally, people's distrust and apprehension are growing. We demand that Prime Minister Suga evaluate the situation calmly and objectively and decide against holding the Olympics and Paralympics this summer."
Will, healthcare workers in Japan are raising those same concerns. The Japanese Prime Minister and other leaders recently received a letter demanding cancellation, and that letter came from the Tokyo Medical Practitioners Association, which has more than 6,000 members. Now, this letter, it said that if the games are not called off, there's the possibility for more infections and deaths in Japan. The latest numbers from the World Health Organization have Japan reporting about 742,000 cases of COVID-19 and more than 12,000 deaths. Actually, almost 13,000 deaths.
Yeah, at this point, it keeps growing there for sure, Andrew. Well, a few renowned tennis players are expressing skepticism about even taking the court in Tokyo. Naomi Osaka, who is representing Japan herself, said she'd like to compete, but the ongoing global pandemic gives her pause about whether the event should be held at all. Rafael Nadal said he'll wait to make a decision about participating under these circumstances with COVID-19. Meanwhile, four-time Olympic champion Serena Williams here in the U.S. also says she's still undecided. So a lot of questions there, Andrew, about even which players might even go to the Olympics.
That's right, and I read that Roger Federer said the same thing, that he'd be interested, but he's kind of in that wait-and-see mode. And speaking of Naomi Osaka, Will, she was in the news yesterday because she withdrew from the French Open. She was fined $15,000 for choosing not to speak in a post-match news conference. And she cited mental anguish and health and stress. She's dealing with a few things, but I mean, that's part of it. When you sign up as a professional athlete, you got to do those post-match news conferences. You have to make yourself available to the media. She chose not to. So that's her choice, but she also withdrew from the French Open. So we'll certainly keep our eyes on that. Now, Will, we've been telling everybody out there for months about Japan's vaccination rate being incredibly low, as in like 2% for the entire country. In recent weeks, though, Japan has begun opening mass vaccination centers to give shots to the elderly in both Osaka and Tokyo. It's part of a goal to step up the country's vaccination rollout with less than 2 months before the Olympics. The Japanese Prime Minister set an ambitious goal. He wants to finish vaccinating the elderly by the end of July. That's about 36 million people. And at this time, as I mentioned, only about 2% of the country's population is fully vaccinated from COVID-19. The latest estimates from the World Health Organization show roughly 5.6 million vaccine doses have been administered. It's not very many for a country of 125 million.
Yeah, turning back here to the U.S. State Department came out with an advisory warning that Americans are strongly discouraged from traveling to Japan. People are told not to go there because of, quote, a very high level of COVID-19 in the country. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee released a statement saying its athletes would still participate. That statement read, "We feel confident that the current mitigation practices in place for athletes and staff by both the U.S. OPC and the Tokyo Organizing Committee, coupled with the testing before travel, on arrival in Japan, and during games time, will allow for safe participation of Team USA athletes this summer." So, Andrew, there are still those unknowns about how the games will even happen with COVID-19 still being a presence and a factor and vaccination rates being so low. So we are still tracking all this information to be able to share with everybody out there.
That's right, Will. And 75 to 80% of the Japanese population, we've also been saying that for months, they do not want to hold the Olympics. They don't feel like it's the right decision to make when the pandemic is still ongoing. Thankfully, in the United States, we seem to have a grasp on things. I mean, the CDC has come out and said that if you're fully vaccinated, you don't need a mask anymore, indoors or outdoors. I know that we still wear one, in California, where the rules are a little bit more, we'll just call them different than other places around the country. So June 15th is the date that Californians are eyeing for when things will completely open up with fewer restrictions. But yeah, that travel advisory to Japan, where they're recommending that U.S. residents don't go, that certainly gave me pause, and I'm sure other people around the country who are really curious as to whether or not the games will happen. But there's no one better to talk about this U.S. travel warning to Japan than our resident infectious diseases expert, whom I know that you spoke with.
Yeah, that is right. We've talked to Dr. Stephen Thomas from Upstate University Hospital in Syracuse, New York for months now. I think it's more than a year at this point, but he is joining us yet again. I talked to him about what advice he would share with people who might be going to the Olympics to cover it, compete, or participate. Let's take a listen. The U.S. State Department put out its highest travel advisory for Japan, warning Americans about going there because of COVID-19. Now, hearing that, how safe do you think it is to travel at this point? And maybe what's your advice for those who will be going to Japan to cover the Olympics?
Yeah, so it probably falls into the category of essential travel only, because again, it's largely a very under-vaccinated environment over there. If I was not vaccinated, I would really think very, very carefully before traveling to someplace where the vast majority of the population is unvaccinated, and where we don't anticipate that they're going to reach even moderate levels of vaccination in the near term. If you are vaccinated, we know these vaccines are highly efficacious, and so your risk of getting infected or getting sick, if you do get infected, has been substantially reduced through vaccination. My recommendation would still be to employ public health interventions, even if you are vaccinated and you travel to Japan.
Yeah, you led right into my next question. The vaccination rate for those who are fully vaccinated in Japan is only about 2% of the population. How concerning is that, since thousands of Olympians and others will be going there to attend the Olympics and cover it and even compete in it?
Yeah, again, I think it's very concerning for people who are unvaccinated, because you're going to be going to a place where 98% of the population is susceptible to infection, which means that there can be very robust transmission going on. And if you're unvaccinated and you put yourself into that situation, then you're at risk. Even if there was high compliance with masking and hand washing and testing and people staying home if they're sick, there's still breakthroughs even through that strategy. If you are vaccinated, again, the vaccines are highly efficacious, and so your risk has been substantially reduced. But again, you're still going into a place that has the potential for lots of COVID transmission. So you got to weigh that risk benefit.
There again, Dr. Stephen Thomas with Upstate University Hospital. He is a COVID-19 expert, has participated in trials. And Andrew, we didn't get to touch on this in the segment that we just aired, but he and his hospital published results for 12 to 15-year-olds getting that Pfizer-BioNTech shot. And the results were very promising. So he is encouraging those who are even younger to be able to go and get that shot and have those discussions with your family. So very interesting things, and we always appreciate him joining us for these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we had a graphic a couple of minutes ago about, the people who have COVID-19 or who have contracted it in Japan versus the people who have died from it. And in a country of 125 million people, 13,000 deaths is nothing. I mean, it's barely a blip on the radar. But the fact that, again, only 2% of the population has been fully vaccinated, that is what organizers are concerned about because, with the Olympics, you're bringing 14,000 people from, 200 countries and territories. That is, an eye-opening, number when, you don't want to have another super spreader event. You don't want this pandemic to get out of control. I mean, everyone's hoping that we kind of, have reined it in a little bit. But, in Japan, things aren't that great in terms of the amount of people who have gotten the, at least both shots or the Johnson & Johnson shot. The people who have been fully vaccinated in Japan, the numbers they're staggeringly low for a country that's supposed to be very progressive. And I think that's the one thing that is making everybody, pause at this point, myself included, just kind of, you got those Google alerts set up, right, where you're monitoring Olympics headlines daily that are coming out of Japan.
Yeah. And Dr. Thomas, I asked him about that as well, saying that he also questions why the vaccination rate has gone, or the vaccine rollout, rather, has gone so slowly in Japan, given that it's such an advanced, wealthy country. So maybe things will ramp up in the next month or so as we get even closer to the Olympic Games. We're more than a month away now, Andrew.
Yeah, 51 days, I think 21 hours and counting.
Yeah.
I can pull up the app here and get you the exact number in just
get the
a
exact
second. But
countdown,
it is exciting. Yeah. It is definitely exciting, Will, because this is, it's the Olympics. The entire world is watching for those, 17 days, the 2.5, 3 weeks that the entire world will converge on Tokyo. So, definitely want to be safe, but definitely want to capture all the excitement as well.
That's for sure.
Speaking of excitement, in 1968, we had, excitement for a lot of different reasons. We want to take a minute right now to remember Lee Evans, 1968 Olympic champion in the 400 meters. He died almost 2 weeks ago at the age of 74. Evans protested racism. He wore a black beret in a sign of protest at the games in Mexico City. He was actually born in Madera, California, which is 20 minutes from Fresno. He grew up in Fresno. So this was a big deal, his passing a couple of weeks ago here in the Central Valley of California. USA Track and Field confirmed the death of Evans. He passed away in Nigeria. The San Jose Mercury News reported that his family started a fundraiser about a week or so before he died in the hopes of bringing him back to the States to receive medical care. He suffered a stroke. Again, that was about a week or so before he died. Lee Evans won the gold medal at the Mexico City Games in the 400 meters. His victory came shortly after Tommy Smith and John Carlos were sent home from the Olympics for raising their fists on the medal stand.
We definitely want to send our condolences to his family for sure. Another development that we're tracking today is that, we are very close from the U.S. Olympic trials beginning. And so here's a breakdown of some of those important dates to keep in mind. And again, this is when the athletes from America will be decided who will go to Japan to compete. So swimming will be up first, and it will happen in Omaha from June 4th through the 7th, and then the 13th to the 20th. Divers will travel to Indianapolis to compete in their trials from June 6th to the 13th. Track and field, they'll be held in Eugene, Oregon from June 18th to the 27th. And then finally, the gymnastics event will take place from June 24th to the 27th in St. Louis. And Andrew, we have talked about this before, but I am a huge gymnastics fan, so that will be a big day for me to watch. I know a lot of fans out there too.
Yeah, my mom loves gymnastics.
Yeah.
I've got some really good friends that love gymnastics. You know, the Gabby Douglases of the world, the Simone Biles of the world, and of course, Simone Biles is not only one gymnast to watch, Will. She is the gymnast that everyone will be watching. And even just recently, she pulled off this vault that I didn't even know what the name of it was. I'm thinking, I can't pronounce the name, but yet you're doing these twists and turns, and she's just amazing.
Defying gravity and making history at the same time, too. So we are unable to show the exact video because we don't have permission to do that. But here's just a little taste of what that looked like. And again, Simone Biles became the very first female gymnast to complete a Yurchenko double pike in competition. You may wonder what that is exactly. That's a round off onto the vault, a back handspring, and then two back flips with straight legs and hands clasped behind the back of the legs. You can see here in just a second. That's the move right there. And then in addition, at the meet, Simone's leotard also gained a lot of attention because it had a goat, which you see right there in rhinestones, a nod to her status as the greatest of all time, inarguably. Simone pointed out that this difficult skill isn't valued high enough in the sports system, which some people knocked as gymnastics not fully recognizing her athletic ability and talent. And Andrew, there's been a lot of conversation about why that is exactly, that this incredible skill that no other woman has competed and completed in competition is not scored more highly than some other skills.
You know, I'm always just amazed whenever I watch, well, not just gymnasts, but really athletes in their element, how they're able to accomplish these feats that, again, I couldn't even pronounce it, the Yurchenko double pike.
And I'm
watching her, I'm just watching her do this and thinking, my gosh, she is so immensely talented. But, you know, Simone Biles, I didn't get the chance to interview her when I was in Rio, but I did witness her. You see her conduct herself, both with dignity, with poise, with grace. I mean, she is someone who is, again, immensely talented, but she is also very deserving of the spotlight. And you hope that she can accomplish great things. I mean, when Michael Phelps swam in Rio for his swan song, the goal, for him was that he was going to put that individual medal count, that gold medal count, out of reach, and he did that. I mean, when he shattered Spitz's record, years ago, everyone's thinking, okay, he's the GOAT of swimming. Simone Biles is the GOAT of gymnastics, and we're all looking forward to seeing what she can do in Tokyo. Of course, she has to officially qualify through the through the team trials, and Will, that's something that's really kind of interesting. Is all these big names out there, Simone Biles included, Allison Felix on the track side, etc. You think that you're going to see these these women, these men, these incredible athletes in Tokyo, but they have to officially qualify first, which is why the trials are so important. We talked about DK Metcalf last month, I believe, when he, showed up for the Golden Games to try and run the 100 meters, football player trying to line it up with the best sprinters of the world. And he didn't embarrass himself, but he also came in, last place in his heat because, these are the best athletes in the world. But with the trials, you have to officially qualify. And there are some people that do get left out, but we'll all be watching the trials first. And right now, I want to say there are only about 140 members, roughly, of Team USA. That's not even a third of the amount of athletes that we're going to send to Tokyo. So a lot of Team USA still left to be decided.
Wow, so we'll have to wait and see who makes the rest of the team roster for sure. Additionally, Andrew, you got a chance to kind of talk about a different aspect of the Olympics. So we're so used to events happening in person. That has obviously changed during the pandemic, and the Olympics is kind of evolving with this current time.
That's right. And in a way, Will, the Olympics have already begun. We keep saying that, July 23rd, of course, is the day of the opening ceremony, and that's, roughly 51 days and change away. But the Olympics have already begun in a different way. Take a listen. It's our pleasure right now to speak with Kit McConnell. He's the IOC's sports director, and he's here from Switzerland to tell us about the Olympic Virtual Series, which is going on right now, May 13th through June 23rd. And with the word virtual in there, you know exactly that it's a way that people are connecting with people, the way that we've been during the entire pandemic. Kit, what makes you so excited about this Olympic virtual series? Because it's something that we haven't seen before.
No, it's something very new for us in the Olympic movement as well. And it's really the culmination of several years at looking at how the IOC and the Olympic movement can engage with the esport community, with the gamers out there, and also support the development of virtual sport, the electronic forms of sport. One of the things we have seen over the last 18 months through the periods of lockdown and restrictions is a huge increase in the participation, the following around esport, around virtual forms of sport, around things like FIFA and basketball, NBA 2K. We've seen increases 300-400% in terms of the numbers of people playing, the numbers of people following online virtual sports. So we've decided to use the opportunity that the postponement of the Olympic Games in Tokyo gave us to take our first step into supporting all of these virtual forms of sport, engaging with these passionate communities around the world, and putting in place the first ever Olympic virtual series, which, as the title suggests, brings an Olympic name, which in itself always generates interest and excitement.
And the 5 sports that you chose were baseball, cycling, rowing, sailing, and motorsports. How were those 5 picked?
Well, first of all, we work with the international federations of all of the respective sports. And with the 5 sports you see there, we have very strong partnerships with the international federations that run those sports internationally. Obviously, several of those you'll see on the program in Tokyo in the coming months. The other one, motorsport, we have a strong relationship with as well. Equally, they've all got well-developed forms of virtual sport. You look at UCI and cycling, their partnership with Swift, probably the most visible physical form of virtual sport, a full replication of road cycling, if you like. So we've worked with partners that we have, international federations, well-developed games with passionate audiences around the world. When you look at the 5, there's a good mix between the physical, with Swift and cycling, with rowing being really a physical simulation of the sport, the others being console or mobile-based games. So they also have different audiences, different demographics, different parts of the world. The baseball game, obviously very popular in Japan and reaching out to that audience ahead of Tokyo. So it's a good mix of sports and sets a base.
And the goal here at some point is to get esports into the Olympics, right? I know that's been talked about in the past, but where are we right now? I mean, obviously you're at the IOC headquarters in Switzerland. Where are we right now in that discussion?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have been very clear about is the door is open for a virtual sport to be included in the Olympic program in the future. The first opportunity would be in Los Angeles, which obviously is of interest to you and most of your listeners. The event program for Paris has been confirmed, but we have very specifically opened the door for a physical form of virtual sport to be included in the Olympic program, the first opportunity being LA in 2028. And in practice, what does that mean? It means that where an electronic version is a full physical replication of the existing sport, and here again, Swift with road cycling, the rowing, things like this, where they do replicate the physical activity of the sport. The door is open for one of these to join the Olympic program in Los Angeles in 2028.
Wow, Andrew, that is so interesting. You know, the fact that a virtual sport could be a part of all the other sports that we're used to seeing at the Olympics.
Well, it's huge already,
Yeah.
Will, and the feedback that they've received on this has been tremendous. Again, I'll give you those dates again, May 13th through June 23rd, so we're right in the middle of this thing. It's going on right now. The 5 sports are baseball, cycling, rowing, sailing, motorsports, and of course the goal is to reach new Olympic audiences, so you know, that up and coming, the younger generation that may not, you know, necessarily be as interested in the traditional Olympic sports, but this could get, you know, the blood pumping and the juices flowing and the excitement flowing as well for the, you know, for the main Olympics, for the main event that is going to kick off on July 23rd. And I asked Kit McConnell, you know, so some other questions too that we didn't get a chance to get to in our, you know, in our interview that we just aired. But I asked him, really, is it easy or difficult to bridge the gap between virtual and traditional sports? And that's what he said the goal is here. He doesn't think it is. And I mean, look, if we're able to get, you know, esports into the Olympic Games by Los Angeles 2028, it's only 7 years from now. And it seems like a long time, but it really isn't, because the Olympic cycles come, you know, every couple of years. One more thing about Kit McConnell, by the way, he was the head of the Rugby World Cup for 10 years. I did ask him about rugby sevens returning to the Olympics on the Rio docket in 2016, and he just smiled. He's very happy that rugby is now an official Olympic sport. But great guy. They're doing great things there, and he was kind enough to join us from Switzerland at the IOC's headquarters.
That was nice to kind of line up a time to interview him, too, because of the huge difference between California and Switzerland. So we appreciate him being a part of this conversation as well. But before we go today, I know we've had a lot of news to discuss as well, but we also want to focus on our team, our Next Star reporting team that's going to be going to Tokyo to cover the Olympics, how preparations are going. Andrew, again, you will be one of those reporters who is going to Tokyo. How are you feeling about things? What's kind of the prep work right now?
Well, yeah, we've been certainly ramping up our Olympic prep, Will. I've had some conversations with some other members of our team, and I said, look, just spend about 30 minutes a day doing some type of Olympic prep, whether you're doing research on athletes, research on Tokyo, the country, or even just or learning about past games, future games. I mean, just you want to do something positive because it'll be here before you know it. We want to be as prepared as possible when we go over there to, share stories of both, the athletes and the country with everyone out there. It's the best way to describe it is, when you're in school, when you're in high school, when you're in college, you have to know the material. If you cram for something the night before or 2 nights before, you're not going to do as well on those tests and essays as you would if you had been studying a little bit each day, for a couple of weeks, couple of months leading up to it. But you asked me how I'm feeling. Yeah. I'm feeling good. I'm probably about 95% confident that the Olympics will take place. I was about 75% confident, I believe, back in like February or March.
Sure.
The fact that I am fully vaccinated, the fact that, I know that people who are going to Japan from other parts of the world are fully vaccinated. It is a little disconcerting to know that the vaccination rates in Japan are still, incredibly low. We've said it a bunch of times, 2% for the entire country. But if the Prime Minister does have his goal met, like President Biden wanted to have his goal met of 200 vaccinations or 200 million vaccinations his first 200 days in office, then things will hopefully look a lot better when we actually get to Japan. And our team has been meeting virtually regularly. Those meetings will be ramping up. We're going to be talking weekly, for the next several weeks leading up to it. And 51 days and change until the Olympics begin. One more headline, though, Will, before we go. I do want to mention the fact that the U.S. 3-on-3 basketball team, 3-on-3 basketball is new to the Olympics this year. But the men's team from the United States will not be going after being upset by the Netherlands on Sunday. So Team USA fails to qualify in the inaugural 3-on-3 basketball tournament. The U.S. women, though, are going. They did actually qualify. So at least the U.S. women will have to carry the torch in this inaugural Olympic sport.
I bet they can do it too. And I want to highlight our team as well. So Andrew's also a part of that team of reporters who will be going to Tokyo there. And I know that everyone has been preparing very hard for this. My colleague, Candy Rodriguez, has been doing really excellent reporting and following some of the athletes here in Texas. And I know everyone else is, as they are kind of all across the country here covering the Olympics, preparing for it. So Andrew, I know you will be on top of it, and we will count on you throughout the entire Olympics as you bring us continued reporting from the games.
Will, could you just put that back up for a second? Sure. I just want to let everybody know where each of these individuals are from. So Matt Barnes comes from our station in Columbus, Ohio. Maria Elena Baloris is based in Norfolk, Virginia. Justin Surnsey is in Des Moines, Iowa. Jack Doles, we call him the Godfather. He's the guy in the middle there. Grand Rapids, Michigan. Melissa Marino, Tampa, Florida. I'm based in Fresno, California. And then Candy, as you said, Candy Rodriguez, based in Austin, Texas. So we are literally spread throughout the entire country, and our goal is to provide everyone out there a sense of the games for everybody, wherever you happen to live in the United States. So it's exciting. It's a good team. I'm looking forward to working with everybody, and it's one of those things where you're in a foxhole together. So even if you don't like them, and I happen to like everybody here, but even if you don't like people, you just got to suck it up for a few weeks. But we've got a good team. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of this month's Japan 2020 Digital Show. Andrew, as always, thank you for being here and for your continued reporting.
Yeah, thanks very much, Will. So next month is, I believe, our last one, unless I'm mistaken, because then we're at the actual Olympics, right?
Yeah,
so,
that is right.
the Japan 2020 live stream will, I guess, officially come to a close 1 month from now.
Yeah,
when did we start this thing?
That was
I know it started with Erin Cargile, who
Yeah.
I've still trying to fill her shoes. I can't do that, but it's been great, and it's been great to to not only work with you and share these headlines with everyone out there, but really just get a sense of what people are saying and thinking leading up to the games.
Yeah, so much to cover for sure. So again, we'll see you back here on July 6th. Andrew, enjoy the rest of your day. And for everybody who else is watching at home, we appreciate you doing that. We will see you back here then. Enjoy your day, everybody. Be safe, take care, and stay healthy.
Bye, everyone.